Welcome to another episode of the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater THPS podcast. We're glad you're here. Welcome to the episode, and we are going to be continuing today our episode with a slateman. It's going to be part two here today. I am the Dode Man, and I'd like to welcome my co-host Freddie.
Hey, Dode Man. I'm glad to be back. Ready to dive in. Part two. We have some pretty good questions lined up.
Absolutely. All right. For today, for our quick hits, we are going to reserve our quick hits and those types of things for after our interview with Slateman. We're going to jump right into our discussions with him here and answering his questions. And we'll have some time for questions from chat today. So, looking forward to jumping into that. So, as usual, everybody in the Twitch chat today, please reserve your questions for the end of the broadcast. We're going to finish our prepared questions. We've got some questions from a Discord channel or two, so should be good. So we're going to welcome back to the podcast right now Slateman. He's the founder of the longstanding Tony Hawk's Pro Skater website, Planet Tony Hawk, and he's the author of Tony Hawk's Gaming Domination: The Rise and Fall of the Tony Hawk Gaming Franchise. We'll continue our conversation from last week, and we're going to jump right in where we left off. So please welcome back Slateman.
Oh, hey, awesome. Thank you so much for inviting me back. I appreciate it.
You betcha. Thanks for making the time. We're grateful to you. So we're gonna jump right back in. So last time, I believe we were talking about the Activision O2 series, and we were talking about some of the titles and games that happened when that thing was cranking right along. And so this week, we're gonna start out with and let's take a look real quick. I'm gonna open up the book here on stream. So we see a couple of pictures here of you with the man himself, Tony Hawk. So I know you got to meet him a couple of times. And so our question is, what was it like interacting with him throughout the several times you had the chance to meet him? Was it kind of just a quick, like, hello, snap a picture, shake his hand, and move on? Or did you get an opportunity to spend a little more time with him and talk about that a little bit?
Well, first off, the most important thing is to realize that I was just like all of us. All of us, maybe we're skater fans, maybe we're gaming fans, whatever we are. I made a website and things just kind of took off. So, I don't feel like I did anything super special. All I know is the timing was right to make a website, to IGN pick me up, and next thing you know, I'm going to whatever I think it was the gigantic skate park tour, and I've got passes to go meet the guy, and so of course I'm in like utter freakout mode. I mean, I imagine most of us would be. I should be professional, but what happens is the first time I get to meet him, we meet up at some hotel lobby, and we go and have some breakfast, and like all of a sudden you're just gonna go eat breakfast with one of your childhood idols. I mean, I was 25, and so I go there with a friend and my girlfriend at the time, and I get to interview him with his publicist, who would later become his wife, and I think there was somebody else there. And I got to spend a good hour just asking him all those fanboy questions that everybody would want to ask. Um, and then I get to go see the tour. I got to meet Cab. I got to meet his son. I got to play the game. It was just like it was surreal.
Wow.
One of those things that I was just, like I said, right place, right time. I was just super lucky. Now, times after that, I got to meet him again. I had E3 a few times at some other tours, but the one story that really sticks with me is because the girl I was with at the time, I was engaged to her, and it didn't work out. So, but he had met her. He had breakfast with her, right? And then I think it's 2 years later, I'm at some tour, and I get to go meet him, and it was just a short shake of the hand and whatnot. And he said something to me. He said, "So, how did things work out? How are things with your girlfriend or something?" I said, they kind of fell apart." And he said, "Me too." And then he kind of pointed to his ring finger, and he didn't have a ring on his ring finger. Um, but it was amazing to me that 2 years later he remembered
Wow.
that little thing about me, and for me that was a big deal. I think it's one of those down to earth people that maybe I was just another media person, but maybe I wasn't. And so I met him 4 or 5 times, and every time I was gushing because I'm this is just friggin' great. But that story about him pointing to the ring really stood out to me because this guy he was just a skater. He's just like all of us.
Yeah, that's crazy. Wow, good story there. That's pretty amazing. I love it. That's
Yeah,
amazing that
but
you.
and you could tell that he appreciated it. He was hands on and never soft. He was there, at the studios. He was checking out the demo. He wanted to be involved. If he just wanted the paycheck, he could have done that. He could have said hi to me and forgotten me, but about me. But I think he's a lot like all of us. He's just down to earth guy, loved skating, loved doing what he did, and appreciated the people that maybe helped him out a little bit. I
Yeah.
can't say I did a lot, but you know what I mean. Help promote the franchise. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think so many of the community sites, that I was a part of, you would always have casual players of the series. You're always going to have the masses that are going to pick up the game, play it for what it's worth, and then that's probably going to be the end of their investment. But then you have people like yourself, me, Freddie, a lot of our viewers that it just got into, hooked into us, and I think that helped all of us, and it probably in turn then helped him too because, gosh, we're still seeing content made and we still have fans, and we're doing a podcast in 2020 on this game that's 20 years old. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I agree.
That is
But
amazing.
and it's cool to see that appreciation. You
For
know,
sure.
Personally it is, but as a community to know that it's not just a paycheck. I think that's what it boils down to.
I mean, just think about all the people he must have come in contact with at the height of his popularity, and for him to remember you like that is pretty awesome.
Indeed.
Yeah, I agree. I was pretty humbled.
Now, Slateman, from the FAQs to the promotional videos to the cheats info and finally the forums, PlanetTonyHawk.com, it was an extremely rich resource for both new and veteran THPS players. At what point did you feel it was time to pause work on or eventually shut down the website? After years of dedication, that couldn't have been an easy decision.
All right, so now you've really gotten to like a sore spot. So I'm gonna. So okay, so I'm with IGN. IGN has all their Planet websites. That's how it works. Things are booming. But then with Web 2.0 and Wikipedia, wikis come about. There's less need to pay somebody like me. Obviously, you've got the support of everybody who could update things. So when you look in the later years, you've got Tony Hawk Ride, Tony Hawk Shred, you've got Motion, you've got Vert, and I think these are really integral to the whole story. These aren't. I think a lot of people look at them as footnotes, but they're not. They're part of the franchise history. I think they're important, but understandably, my content, my dedication had waned a little bit. I think all of us, anybody who was into the scene at that time, felt, oh, geez. But so what had happened was IGN decided to pull support for all their Planet sites. They were going to pull them all and they were going to archive them, so you couldn't update them anymore. So this is around Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD. So HD is coming out, and now I'm getting psyched because this is more kind of up our alley. You know what I mean? So I go and I start doing an update or two, and I'm ready. I'm ready to start rolling out my guys, every level, every trick, the same thing I had done years before, and I loved it. I love doing that. And I go online and I start editing things, and I'm getting errors and errors and errors. And so I have to write, a ticket to IGN, and eventually I go high up the branch, and they said, "Oh yeah, well, the Planet sites, we've archived them." I'm like, "Well, what the hell do you mean you've archived them?" They're like, "Yeah, well, they're now done. They're closed. Everything's archived, and nobody can update them anymore." And I was incensed. I'm like, "Well, did anybody think to maybe tell me? Because I'd like to at least be able to like make my last post be, 'Hey, we're shutting down.'" And they're like, "Oh yeah, sorry, the guy forgot to email you." And therefore, Planet Tony Hawk's last update is just some update. And I never got a chance to say goodbye. I never got a chance to. And I'm I That was I think 2012. That's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD. So that's 8 years ago, and I'm still pissed about it. I'm like, my wife like rolls her eyes at me, but I'm like, it cut me to the core because this was like my baby. I dedicated everything, and they archived it. I'm sorry to talk so much. They archived it, and all the friggin' bunch of pages are broken, links are broken, and I never got to say goodbye. And so I didn't actually make that decision to pull the plug. It was made for me without my knowing, and I'm pretty angry about it still.
Wow. That's crazy. I never knew that. I was curious because, I guess I had kind of just presumed that it was shut because, HD just didn't quite pan out the way everybody hoped and longed it to be. It wasn't all it was supposed to be. And I just was like, he was probably just done. Because
No,
at that point I kind of was. So that's really interesting to hear. I did not know
and
that.
and you could see my frustration because I can't even tell everybody, or even somebody who visits now, hey, I wonder what happened. There's no like, oh, by the way, things are closing shop. Thanks for all the years. It just like the rug was pulled out underneath me. And it was probably somebody that just forgot to email me. It wasn't a malicious thing. Nobody was like, hey, we got to get this guy.
Right.
It was just stuff happens, but like, oh man, I'll never forget how angry I was that day. And I'm still bitter about it.
Oh,
I'm
I
still
can.
bitter because,
Yeah, it
Wow.
makes
man,
sense.
and not that I need to save face. Not that if you go visit today, like, oh, I wonder what happened. I guess it just, I want, it sounds so stupid. It's like your baby. You just want to say goodbye. You want to just, I don't know. It, I'm still pissed off about it. I gotta admit.
Yeah, I would be too. That's really unfortunate that they did that to you, and there's no. And so, I mean, there's no. I guess at this point it would just be so hard. But I think in my mind, I'm like, is there any way that you could take the domain name and redirect it or something like that, so that you could kind of, but it'd be a monumental effort to port this over to something else, But wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's tough.
All right. Well, let's see. So let's move along to this. So you have played out of so many different. Your book is crazy. I can't even fathom the level of detail that you have in here. It's just amazing how much you have. So you have covered in depth every game in the series all the way through Pro Skater 5. Absolutely monumental effort to do this and to get it to this point. But question is, out of everything that you've played, and you've played a lot, what's the most obscure game out of everything that you've played from the series?
All right. So you guys are still with me, right? You can hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Just double checking. So, we know all the basic ones. We know all the platform ones, the console ones, PlayStation, Xbox, all that stuff. So the biggest ones that you can find, and these are actually still available, most of them, if you do a little research of, maybe not the most legitimate of means, but you can find the Java-based phone versions. It's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4, Vert, and Street, Underground, and you just get if you don't mind me saying this here, like a Java-based emulator, and you can boot these things up. These are all available except for Underground 2. Underground 2 is gone. I can't find it, and also, what is it? Downhill Jam.
Mm.
These things just don't seem to have ever been dumped. So unless somebody has a phone right now that still has the game on it, we'll probably never get to see those games.
Wow.
Um, but if a little bit of research, let's see, mobile Tony Hawk game from 2002. Like, it's about as bad as you think it would be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you bet.
um, but then you got the international one. So Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 had the Korean version, right? That had the female singers from that band. Finkel, Finkl. I don't even know how you say it. It's the PC version, except it's got a bunch of extra skaters in it. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 had some extra skaters in it as well. And the same thing, and 4 had a whole Japanese translation. But mostly the games are the same. They're weird little minor differences. But I'd have to say the mobile games are the most obscure, and easily the worst one is Motion. Tony Hawk's Motion. I don't know if you guys ever played this.
No.
I have. I played Motion.
Yeah, because it uses this proprietary it use a it's a DS game, so it needs a GBA motion sensor card. So it'll never be emulated because this is the only game that ever used it. And oh my god, it's terrible. It is absolutely the worst game.
I played
Do
it.
you agree?
Oh yeah, it's brutally hard to play. It's so funny. You plug in that peripheral into it was like, I think the DS had very few things that used even that slot, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it had that weird peripheral, and I played it at, I don't remember the years, but anyway, I played it and I was like, yeah, this is the control. I mean, I appreciate what they were trying to do. You know, they were trying to be like, well, let's get some motion based stuff here so you can steer your skater with the actual DS, and it just didn't. It didn't pan out. It didn't play well at all. So yeah, I agree with you. It was bad. It was bad.
I will say the one thing I think about motion is that I think Activision was going to try to test out the motion controls to see if they can use that for something else. It seemed more of like a proof of concept than a full-fleshed game, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I could see that to be true for sure.
Hey, Slateman, can you tell us if there was any specific person from the Planet Tony Hawk forums that really stands out to you after all of these years?
It's so weird because okay, man, it's 2020, so about 5 or 6 years ago, you're running. I run Windows machines, and I'm looking, and I still got what? Well, you got MSN, you got AOL Instant Messenger, you got ICQ, you've got all these old protocols, right? And
Yep.
you only kept one for this guy and one for that guy, and so eventually, when you decide to uninstall this stuff, you see all these old names, and you're like, oh my god, I remember this guy, I remember that guy, and then there are all these names of like, I don't even know who this guy is, and I don't mean that doesn't. It's not to be an elitist. It's just you get old and you forget these things, and so it's strange because some of these names are just so old that I kind of flake on them. I'm like, oh my god, it was him, but who is that again? You know what I mean? Because I unplugged so long ago. But
Oh,
I do know that there's one guy who I've still been in touch with since '99, 2000, and that's Cyruk. He's based out of Australia. He's been a great friend. He's helped me out with that book and the new book I'm writing, um, and he's just been a great help and a great friend all these years. One other name I will say is a guy named Granelbark. I
that
don't know.
one sounds familiar. He must have been on the forums a lot. Granelbark, gosh, I haven't heard that in many, many years. The other one that comes to mind too that I know he helped you a lot is No V. He was like your co-publisher. Like he helped do a lot of the stuff. Went to E3 a couple times on Planet Tony Hawk's behalf and so forth.
So no Valladolid lives out in California, out in the LA area.
Yeah.
He did go in 2000, 2001. And then when I went out there in 2003, 4, 5, whatever it was, he is an activist in the skating community, and he's just so creative, and he's super talented and artistic, and yeah, he even got on ESPN. You see Tony Hawk, and he's out there holding a Planet Tony Hawk sign behind it, which is really freaking cool. Um, but now you fast forward all these years, and he's also a big Street Fighter fan. And I'm going to shamelessly plug this right now. I'm just finishing my second book, big book, which is going to be on the same idea on the Street Fighter series. He kind of helped me with that one.
Nice.
So I'm still actually in touch with Noah, and he's great. He is 6 feet 10 inches tall. So
Oh wow.
I've got a picture of him, and then Tony Hawk is 6'6". So he's 4 inches taller than Tony Hawk, and I'm like 5'9". I look like it's terrible. But he's a great guy, and I keep in touch with him still.
That's awesome.
And he did a lot for the site. He interviews and content and
All right, so let's see. So tell us how you just talked about your Street Fighter book, but obviously the Tony Hawk book that we've been kind of paging through and taking a look at as you're mentioning certain things. How did you decide to write the book? I mean, I can't even. underscore the enormous task it must have been to take everything you've learned, collected it about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and turn it into this compendium of 200 plus pages. For any gaming fan, this book is a triumph. So any insight into the creation of this book from start to finish would be appreciated.
All right. Well, I'll give you kind of step by step if it doesn't bore you. So 2012, actually before that, 2005, Noah Valladolid and I kind of work on this history of Tony Hawk series for the website. I thought it was a pretty cool thing that says, hey, oh, by the way, the Xbox version of Pro Skater 3 has an extra skater, right? And this version has that. I always kind of like chronicling that stuff. I think people are interested in that. Nowadays, it's easier on like a wiki site, right? Because you could toss some stuff, you can toss some stuff, and everybody. So we made that article a bunch of years ago, and then of course the website dies, and we've already covered my anger about it. So now a bunch of years later, we actually moved to Sweden. My wife gets a job. We move over to Sweden, and I quit my career as a teacher. I was a language teacher, and now all of a sudden I'm kind of a stay-at-home dad. And there are a couple things that happened. First off, I see that there's this documentary coming out about the history of it, and I'm thinking, man, this is great. This is going to be so cool. We're going to tap into the retro market, which retro to me always feels like it should be older than PlayStation 1, I'll be honest. But
Yeah, same. I agree.
so we're tapping into that, and maybe now's the time to kind of look back. I wrote this website that had the history of it. Maybe we can expand upon it. But another thing was there was a book that came out about 20 years of Tomb Raider, and it's a 20-year retrospective. And this, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I found the book very, very boring. I didn't love it. It didn't address what I wanted to know. It talked about, hey, Tomb Raider came out on a mobile version in this year. And I said, well, I want to know about that. I want to know what's different and what's unique and what's. And so I said, well, I'm a stay-at-home dad. I've got time. I've got this history thing in the past. I've got, maybe a new film coming out. Why not just write a book? I got some time to do it. Worst case, it doesn't sell. But best case, this is the most important, is that, like, even though my website is dead and broken, this book, can kind of live on forever.
Yeah.
You'll have it on your shelf, and there'll be a PDF version that can distribute forever, and that info won't ever be lost. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There you go. I like it.
And so I just sat down, started at the beginning, and fortunately I still had a bunch of crap on my hard drive from Neversoft in the old days. I got so much stuff. Why not write a book on it? And the goal only was to make something I would read.
Yeah.
And I think I did pretty well.
Yeah, I love it. I think I mentioned it a little bit last week. I was a late purchaser of the book. I knew it was coming out, and just embarrassed, admittedly, I bought it a month or so ahead of this podcast, and I regretted not buying it day one because it's so good. I've enjoyed it. I haven't read it cover to cover yet, but I think I've read through at least 4 or 5 titles, every word, and it's just fantastic. I'm looking forward to finishing it.
Yeah, it's a history book. I know it's video games, got lots of pictures, but the goal was to write a history book about everything, about maybe the development about it, about sales figures, about how Skate affected it, about how Robomoto games affected it, about,
Yeah.
So it's really not meant to be
Now, Slateman, speaking of the book, I was scrolling over to page 183, and you had made a comment, and I just wanted to ask you, why did it take you nearly 2 decades to utter the verb ollieing?
Well, of course you say ollieing, but like I was a language teacher and I was a language student, and just that, so OLLIEI, I just always thought IEI looked weird. So when I wrote the site all back throughout the late 90s and early 2000s, I just avoided that word at every go. And so when I wrote the book, I'm like, this is it, because I'm going to be honest, by the time I was done, I was burnt out of Tony Hawk. I needed a break so desperately. And then of course he puts out another game and the newest mobile game. But at the time I was like, I'm done, so I'm going to just write this stupid little thing, ollieing. We say it, but seeing it in print looks weird, so I just avoided it for decades.
Let me follow up. Just a side question. You had told us to ask you about the Antichrist air.
So that was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. It was the Shabba version. It was the PlayStation 1 version. So Neversoft, of course, moves on. They're doing PS2 and then eventually the other platforms. And they handed off development of the PS1 version to Shabba, who did, I thought, a spectacular job. And so now I'm in the industry. I'm some idiot just who is getting beta discs sent to me by Activision. And so I'm like, okay. And of course, I want to cover. Yeah, so they developed this great thing. Rune Glifberg had I think it was Rune who had the Christ Air in the early games, and somebody has an Antichrist Air. It's a joke, This is Neversoft, and so of
Yeah.
course I write about it. I put it on my little preview, and I swear I press go, and within 10 minutes my phone is ringing, and it's Ree Ming Poon. She was the publicist for the Pro Skater games back then for Activision, and she's like, you have to take that down now. I said, okay, whatever I need to do, because of course I don't want to put anything in jeopardy. And she's like, because, that move is attributed to Jamie Thomas. I have a picture of Jamie Thomas doing an Antichrist air. I didn't think a big deal of it. She's like, well, he's very religious. He's Christian. And
Oh.
I'm thinking to myself, why the hell would you give him the Antichrist air?
Right. Right.
Why wouldn't you give it to anybody else? And so I had to scramble. It was no big deal, but I just found it hilarious that I don't know why Shabba did that. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe they weren't, they didn't know about his religious preferences. But I just found it hilarious that they gave him, of all the skaters, that move.
That's awesome. So obviously the soundtracks for the games are super famous, and I mean, how many of us can't not think of "Pretending I'm a Superman" by Goldfinger when you think of this series? So out of all of that stuff, if you could add three of your favorite songs of any of the genres that were part of the series to any game, what would they be, and which games would you add them to?
Metal guy, straight up metal. So first game I liked. The first game was, crassier, punkier, a feel. Um, but then as the games went on, they were very much, they had different genres, right? And they kind of just fell into line in those genres. And so of course by, 4 or 5, Underground 2, you'd get the game and you'd play it a bit, but then I'd go in and mute all the songs that I didn't like. I guess it was nice. If I could add 3 of my favorite songs, they would be all like friggin' metal things. There's Slayer in one of them, Immortal in another. I do still like a couple of songs from 1 and 2. Those catchy ones. Of course, I told you we listened to Jerry Was a Race Car Driver like 900 times.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all you had. I don't know. I'd put something like Merciful Fate in there. Oh,
I
I
love
don't know.
it.
My favorite band now is called Moon Sorrow. They're based out of Finland, so it would be European stuff that most people wouldn't know, and they'd probably mute it just like I muted all their songs.
Now, Slateman, I was wondering, these days, when you want just a quick taste of Tony Hawk gameplay, which version do you put on and play?
Well, which version do you guys put on? I bet you're what, like 4 or Underground or something like that.
Absolutely. 4 or obviously Thug Pro.
Yeah, same. We typically play Thug Pro just because that's if you want to hook up. I like to play with friends. Typically, I don't usually play story modes anymore that much. So I usually it's Thug Pro almost exclusively for me.
Yeah, Thug Pro is, like I said, is the best thing that's happened to the series longevity.
Yeah.
Particularly because these old games like 1 and 2, there are PC versions. We're looking at emulation,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But for me, it would definitely be 1 or 2. And
Yeah.
so when I started writing the book and I went back to 1, and it's time to, okay, let's dissect this again. Man, 1 is still fun. Like, it's flawed and it's not as bombastic, but like, you boot that up and within 10 minutes, like, I'm right back in there. I think that's that's a sign of just quite how good it was. Is
Yeah.
that 20 later you could still pick it up, and once you dust off everything, the thing is still a spectacular game. So I would still go back to 1 and 2, but if I'm really going to play for a while, definitely Thug Pro.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good insight. Uh, it's rumored. It's this is completely rumor, but it's rumored that PlayStation 5 may have backwards compatibility all the way to PS1. And so if it does, it would make the ability to play these old titles on a current gen console. Obviously, the graphics and so forth wouldn't be updated, but we'll see. We'll see. More murmurings of PlayStation 5 are happening by the day, but that'd be amazing if you could go back. And that was my first thought. If it's backwards compatible, I got to make sure. I've got discs all the way back for Pro Skater 3, but I don't have 1 or 2. Anyway, I need to find all that so I can play.
Well, and I know Microsoft has done a great job at backwards compatibility, and I know they have to do it on a per title basis. But the launch PS3 played PS1 and PS2 discs and
Yep.
stuff like that. If they can make that work, whew, that'd be great.
Agreed, 100%. So you alluded to this earlier. So when after you finished the book, you finished Pro Skater 5. Tony Hawk did Skate Jam, the mobile game. After that, did you get a chance to play that? And what were your thoughts on that one?
I did. I didn't love it. Like here's the thing. Like if Tony Hawk's name weren't on that, would I have been as inspired to try it? And I don't think the answer is yes. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, it was developed by the same developers that did Skateboard Party, and I didn't play any of the Skateboard Party games, but my understanding is it was just Skateboard Party, basically reskinned and
Reskin.
slap Hawk's name on it and call it a mobile game. So
What do you make of the recent rumors that Activision had internally been testing a remake of Tony Hawk 1 and 2? And would you like to see those original games receive the Crash or Spyro remake treatment?
All right. So I think if you got to go back to Tony Hawk Pro Skater HD,
hmm
and you say, okay, they did Ride and Shred and all that stuff, and they didn't do so well. So then they said, hey, let's go back into the retro market. We'll do HD. Robomoto gets a really bad rap for all this, but I think we all have to understand the impossibility of what they were put into, because if it's exactly the same as it used to be, it's going to be dated. But if you do too much to it, it's not going to be authentic. So, I think that's what happened with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5 as well. So if you look at doing in the year 2020 a remake of 1 and 2, like how authentic do you need it to be? In my opinion, it has to be exactly the same. It has to be exactly the same. Like Spyro the Dragon was, for all intents and purposes, like the exact same physics, the exact same, world sizes, no new abilities or skills. I mean, it has to be the same exact thing, because otherwise, I think, do you understand what I mean? It's impossible to
Yes.
satisfy.
100%. Yep, I agree. I could spend hours talking about this subject because I have pretty strong opinions about HD and what they did, and to me it just blows my mind. I still to this day don't quite understand why they decided to change the engine. If they had the source code and they had that available, couldn't they have taken that engine that had been perfected over all those years that Neversoft worked on it and tweaked it, and they overhaul it into a new engine? I just left me scratching my head. So I agree. To make the fan base happy, it's got to be the same, maybe with updated graphics or whatever, but keep the exact same engines and put a new polish on it. I don't know what else you can
Yeah,
say.
it's all about the physics, right? It
Yeah.
has to feel. You could make it look however you want it to look. I don't really care how it looks, but that pixel perfect timing, that tight controls, that and yeah. So the problem with HD, that you had crazy physics,
hmm
and it was like, well, this I'm skating in the warehouse, but this is in no way, shape, or form their warehouse. This is not what I did, and so the nostalgia market, I think we all had issues with it. It was tough, and I don't blame Robomoto. I think they did what they thought they had to do or something, but it was just, I think it was a tough sell, particularly for 2012. I mean, it's almost a decade later. Now maybe we could do the exact same engine, and it would be great. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah.
I would like to see it if it's possible. Come on, like that'd be great to be able to. But I think you really, if it's not 100% authentic, I think you're headed for horrible disaster. That's my take.
Yeah, I know. I think we've already seen that. I agree with you 100%. I think we've already seen them try to remake one to a degree with HD. I mean, sort of. I mean, they threw in the levels from 3 in there as a DLC that ended up being free. Anyway, the whole thing that went along with that. But yeah, I think I
Well,
agree with you.
and I was a big fan of Spyro the Dragon back then too, and so I played the remake, and it felt just like it. You know, I can control the camera with the other analog stick, but it was the same game, and I loved it. I played it through and 100%ed it because it hit that nostalgia
Yeah,
because it felt the same.
yeah. That's a great point. So let's see. Noah V, he once asked this to the Tony Hawk for the History of Tony Hawk Games article in 2005. We turn this question to you, Slateman. What's your take on everything that's happened to you, skateboarding or the world, in the past years since Tony Hawk's Pro Skater first appeared in '99?
Well, I think this has to do with age. I think I'm sorry, Dode Man. I think you're older than me. I think you and I might be on one realm here. Uh,
Yeah,
Freddie's younger, and I don't know what kind of audience we have. But when Pro Skater came out, I was 23 years old. I was done with college essentially, you know. So I was at one point of my life, and I think you'll agree that man, life just seems to be speeding up and speeding up and speeding up,
hmm,
and things that you know I used to think were, you know, like I don't know, things you start missing it, and then things just like speed up and they seem in the rear view mirror.
yeah,
Um, so all I know is this: I was just a lucky guy at a good time and a good place. I think I did a good job. I worked hard. I really had passion for it, but I think a lot of people could have done it. I just happened to get. I was at the right place at the right time, and I appreciated every second of that journey. I try to do that with everything in life, right? Because you know it is what it is. Um, and I think I was fortunate to go through this, and it's been great watching skateboarding kind of rise and fall and rise and fall. It's great to see gaming, you know, do the same thing. Um, I don't even know what's my take on everything that's happened to me. Holy crap, that's life, man. I mean, 99 is 21 years ago. I'm 44. I was a baby. You know,
yeah,
I just think it's one of those things that it was really a part of me for a good 15 years. It was really part of who I was. It was, you know, it was part of my life when I was in this relationship and with that, when I lived here and when I lived there, and that's a very personal thing.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, totally. Yeah, I feel you 100% about seasons. That's how I try to look at life. Life comes in seasons, and yeah, I can resonate with your statement about things moving faster. It just goes by so quickly, and it's just a blink of an eye. Sometimes it seems like 1999 was, you know, very recently, and then other times I'm like, wow, that was almost a lifetime ago. So yeah, I feel you for sure.
Yeah. You know, and the one thing, because I think we're probably, you know, wrapping it up here. I'm looking at the questions, but I have dipped my toes in on this the Robomoto concept a little bit, and I think it's important because I think we all agree. Neversoft, we love them. We know they were spectacular, right? Um, and then they were given the torch for Guitar Hero, and you know, Robomoto came and had to make 4 games, and I really think that they weren't given a really great opportunity, you know. And I don't know if you've gotten to the chapter about Ride. Ride is a really interesting story about. I think they just didn't have time. I think Activision said, "Hey, we want this." You know, with Tony X Pro Skater 5, when they announced it, then all of a sudden they changed the visual, the graphic, you know, interface. They changed everything. I think it was just a bad byproduct of you know the way business works. Um, and
Yeah,
it's tough.
it is tough. You know, I have mixed emotions. I don't firmly blame Rotomoto for, you know, the series of games. You know, they were given a nearly impossible task for a franchise that they were trying to retool, and then they switch gears after the peripherals fail. and try to redo the games. And, they were under super, super tight deadlines and everything else. And, I can't imagine that they set out and said, oh, we're just going to make a really crappy game. I think they tried. I think they really tried to redo it and breathe some fresh life and ideas into it and everything else. And unfortunately, it just didn't quite come off, as well as it could have. If they were given another year or two to finish development, would they have been better? Probably so. I don't know if we'd feel the same, but on the other hand, you look at it and you say, well, Neversoft was given a year every year. They had to crank
Yeah,
one out.
well, yeah, yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so I don't know. I don't know. Like,
Yeah, no, that's a tough one, and I'll say, because I played Ride and Shred. I don't know. Have you guys played Ride and Shred or either or what?
I haven't actually played it.
I haven't either. I was one of the guys that was like, I will not drop $100 on this. I'm not doing it. And then by the time it dropped in price, I had read the reviews and read, the issues with it, and I'm just like, I just can't do it. And I was always mad. I always was like, why didn't you guys give an option for controller support?
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I just always, it left me scratching my head still to this day. It's like I would have liked to have tried it, but when I play video games for the most part, I like to relax and chill out on the couch. I don't really want to get up, and I was never a guy that got into Wii Sports, with the bowling, all the Wii
yeah.
controller stuff. I just didn't do it. I was like, I want to just chill and relax, and so anyway, so no, I haven't played either one.
Well, so that's the thing. Fortunately, I didn't have to pay for them, so I'll be honest. I was a little
Nice.
biased on that. But my first Ride deck I got didn't work. I got it about 2 weeks after it launched, and then it didn't work, so I had to wait another week. So by the time I got to even write about it, of course, they knew. But I will say, when I played Shred the next year, it was a lot more fun. It
That's
was,
what I've heard.
you
Shred is
know,
definitely the better of the two.
you might, if you really find interest, pick it up for $12 on eBay or something, and then you don't even have to stand up. Just sit on your couch and do it. You can do that too. It's cheap.
Now,
Um,
Slateman, looking ahead, what, if anything, do you envision for the future of the Tony Hawk franchise?
well, so he just put out. Oh my gosh, I can't even remember what the name of the game was. What was the most Skate Jam?
Skate Jam, yeah.
So I think we know that if given the opportunity, he's going to join up with some developer. He's the most iconic name still. Even though there are plenty of great skaters nowadays, his name still has considerable selling power. So I don't think any of us have any doubt that something's going to happen at some point, right?
Yeah.
Um, I hope it's not mobile because let's face it. But if Activision decided to go out and do a remaster, that I think that would make most of us the happiest. But what if EA said, "Hey, we want to do Skate 4," and Skate 4 has Tony Hawk in it? Oh, holy crap! I think that would make a lot of us freak out. But who knows? Who knows? It's all business dealings and stuff like that, right? So it's just a matter of what works best for him.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll tie in something with the skateboarding being in the 2020 Olympics.
You, well, if so, it's probably already rolling, right? So who knows?
Yeah, that's
Um,
been my thought is something to do with the 2020 Olympics. There were rumors that he was looking at VR at some point, which I don't know how well that would work, but that's been rumored. And then the other rumor that I've heard is there's a 900 Club interview with Lizzie. I can't pronounce Lizzie's last name correctly. She's a pro skater. Armato.
Armando. Yeah, yeah.
Martha, thank you. She talked about a game is already being worked on, and she's already been asked to be a character in the game. That's the only thing we've heard, but at any rate, I definitely think there's something cooking right now as we talk. I don't know if it's the remasters or what, but anyway.
Well, and when you really think about it, let's say it's VR. That sounds crazy, but Pro Skater was crazy back then.
For sure.
The interviews back then, like you can't just do that. You can't do that, and nail the trick type things in Project 8. Like those were forward thinking. Let's face it, Tony Hawk's Motion was terrible, but it tried something new. Ride and Shred were terrible, but they tried something new. So,
Sure.
I think he'd be more interested in saying, "Hey, okay, let's try this novel idea," then let's just do another one of something we've done already.
Yeah. Hmm.
The other thing I'd like to hit on, if you guys have a minute,
Sure.
was EA Skate,
Oh yeah.
because I don't know about you guys, I thought that was just a spectacular game. I love the feel, I love the physics of it all. Um, but one thing I tried to write about in the book was about how a lot of people say Skate came along and just crushed the Tony Hawk franchise, and the whole reason Tony Hawk died as a successful franchise was because of Skate. And it's actually not true at all, because there was an EA guy, I don't know who it was, his president or something, said that they outsold Tony Hawk games 2-1. I don't know what it is. It's some statistic,
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was kind of true, because at that point, Neversoft had moved to the PS3 and the Xbox 360. But actually, like, this is Proving Ground and stuff. At that point, Proving Ground was outselling EA Skate. But the problem was everybody was buying the PS2 version or the Wii version,
Right.
and they weren't received so well. So all of a sudden, everybody's like, they're playing this inferior game. I don't think it was all about Skate at all. I think it was, you had millions and millions of PS2 owners and inferior games, and I think there was fatigue. I mean, that was what, the ninth game.
Right.
That's just, I had fatigue. I don't know about you. I was fatigued by that point.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so much for me. It was by then the online community of the player base for the online community had dwindled to nothing for the most part. All the people that I had played with for the most part had moved on. They weren't playing it anymore, and so that's
Yeah.
what was hard for me. Because yeah, I would play through the story mode and whatever. I don't think in the last even probably four titles that Neversoft made, I 100%ed everything on sick. I just didn't. I played through the story mode, kind of got the basics, built up my stats, and then right to online play and building creative parks and stuff. So
Yeah.
without having that player base, yeah, definitely fatigued for sure.
Yeah. It was that's how it goes. And I don't know, because Call of Duty, what didn't the numbers come out for the decade, the 2010s, and I don't know, 8 of the top 12 are Call of Duty. So they can do it. They can just put out a new one every year, and it sells millions.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's the thing
and
I've never quite got either. It's like, okay, you've got football. The game doesn't change that much. How many titles has Madden put out? 30. You
That's a
know,
lot.
I mean, they've been doing Madden since forever. They've been doing Madden since probably like Sega Genesis. I don't know exactly, but but
Yep.
they're still cranking them out every year, and they tweak it slightly, and they enhance the online features and whatever else. But it still happens. Obviously, there's a lot to it, and it's a team sport, and it's highly popular. But I just never quite could figure out, how can there not be such strong longevity for. I mean, skateboarding's still really popular. It's seen a lull in the last few years, but still.
It made it a special time. Like, I don't know. I don't know if
Totally.
I sustained 15 years of it. Those, for me, 1, 2, and then a couple years after that are just like, they're really magical to me.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
that's okay.
Perfect storm for sure. And the skateboarding popularity and gaming. Yeah, just so it just came together so amazingly, and it's just a different time now. So that's a perfect segue into this. What's your hope then, Slateman? This is going to be the final question from Freddie and I, and then we're going to get into some questions from Discord and chat. But what is your hope for your lasting contribution for this series? What would be your hope out of all of it that you've done?
Well, I really consider myself fortunate to be able to run the site. I know a lot of people visited it back in the day. It was fun. I did it because I really loved it. And now the site's dead and a decaying shell. The book thing for me, and I don't care, I'm not here to sell the book, but I'm just glad it exists. I'm glad if it sits on your shelf or somebody has it, that anybody could pick it up and say, oh, yeah, I remember this. Oh, I remember that. And it you know, kind of exists in perpetuity. I don't have to worry about my website dying.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I was kind of important in that process. But So I think all of us were. That was the best. I think that's one of the best parts of the Hawk community, and the timing of it. The late '90s, early 2000s, just people coming together, figuring out strategies, got gaps and guides.
Okay, Slateman. So we're going to be moving along to some questions sent to us via Discord. Um, I have our first question from username Warpig. Do you see a Neversoft comeback within the next 10 years? And with it, a strong release from them with Hawk or no?
Oh, absolutely not. I, I don't know if you guys disagree with me.
No, I agree with you 100%. I think I don't know if you keep in contact with the development team, but I do. I'm friends with several of them on Facebook and other social platforms and whatever. And I mean, they've moved on. They're they're in different studios and whatever else. And I'll certainly let you continue with your thoughts on it. But I agree.
No, I fully agree with you. Now, I mean, the story of them comes mainly from Joel Jewett, who was the president. You know, there were a couple other guys involved, but he was the guy that was front and center. And first off, Neversoft, the way it was at their heyday, could not exist today. They couldn't. They
Right.
were not PC. They, I'm sure, they worked too many hours. It just couldn't be. And I think, most of them, yeah, they've moved on to say, we did that. We did that. We kicked ass. $1 billion on the Hawk franchise. Like, there's no point in returning this. There's no way you could possibly top it.
Yeah. All right. I agree. Let's see. This is also from user Warpig, and he says, "Do you think extreme sports as a video game genre will ever come back? Maybe not from Tony Hawk, but from another professional skater. Mike V had his own game. Nothing close to Tony Hawk, say the skate franchise. But could the formula be repeated, but potentially for another pro skater?"
See, I find it fascinating that like snowboarding games had a very long history of success. Snowboard seemed less so in recent years,
Hmm.
but there have been plenty of them. There have been so many, but like other franchises, you just don't see it as much. Um, like skateboarding really seemed to be a niche thing for a certain amount of time, and then it kind of disappeared. You've got some bigger games coming out. I'm not too familiar with Session, and there's one other one I think. But I don't know. I really don't know if skateboarding has that. I don't know if it has the possibility to have that magical upstart again. I really don't know. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, the two that are out right now that seem to be more sim-like are Session, as you mentioned, and then the other one is called Skater XL. Um, Skater XL is PC only, and then Session is going to be ported to Xbox. That release has actually been delayed. I still try to keep track of what's coming out and what's happening, but they're
That's cool.
they're very sim-like. Where obviously Tony Hawk is going to have the more arcade type feel. Um, the only game that has come close to kind of having that more arcade game feel, Ollie Ollie and Ollie Ollie 2 came out as releases, and those, but they're like side scroller ish. And then the other one is Epic Skater and Epic Skater 2, and those were done by Andy. THPS, which we all,
Yep.
of course, are familiar with, and those are just absolutely fun. They're a blast, especially when he did Epic Skater 2 on Steam, and then he could play with a controller and not just touch. Really, really
Yeah.
fun. So,
Yeah, and I had played Ollie Ollie both of them. I
mhm.
blazed through them, did everything. I felt like I just didn't have that level of creativity and freedom that the Hawk series gave. That's what really called to me.
Yeah.
Give me, just toss me on a board, let me go and do whatever the hell I want to do. And I don't know. Maybe the problem, if it is a problem, is the ecosystem of video games and what people want and what people expect. And maybe it's just different in 2020. Has nothing to do with the sport. Maybe the sport just doesn't fit in, what people want. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, here's another question sent to us via Discord from user Nevada. What are your best memories of the Planet Tony Hawk community?
Oh man, it was just I would have to go way even before Planetonic, the Delphi forums. Just I keep using the word magic, but it really felt, it was special to me, and I had never existed before, to my knowledge, in a video game, community. And then, of course, then I get Planet Tony Hawk, and it's not like it's mine, but it was all housed under my website. It was like, oh my god, I got enough stuff running my own pages here. Now I got to worry about forums too. And so a lot of times the communities I kind of outsourced to people. I would have other people helping because I felt like I couldn't juggle both. And then maybe even actually want to play the game every once in a while.
Yeah.
So for me, the just that the I still have back in way in the old days, half of it is just lies. I don't know why people would do that. I had a folder of just people that would just make fun of me or like curse me out or say I was ugly. I'm like, why are you taking the time to do this? I don't understand it, but hey,
Oh gosh, trolls are alive and well. We're still dealing with them with the people that manage OpenSpy. We have trolls that come on to the gameplay even today in 2020, and they have to be banned. People have better things to do with their time.
yeah, no, I just opened an old directory. I got an email. Your game sucks. Oh, okay. This one.
Wow,
Hello, child of the night. I like. Why would people write me this stuff? I don't know. I just love it.
unbelievable. Wow. Okay, we're going to move on to some Q&A from Discord. We've had some people already post some questions, and I've scrolled back up to, it looks like the first question for this. So the question is from Mr. Freeze, and he's the original host of the podcast. So howdy,
Awesome.
Mr. Freeze. And he
Hello.
says, do you have any idea how many copies of your book have sold so far?
I could probably crunch the numbers. Uh, the short answer is not as many as I'd like. I guess I don't know.
Sure.
No, I've actually done pretty well. I don't know. I'd have to think about exact numbers. But it sold decently, particularly at first. I know I forget his online name. Ice Bear
Ice Bears?
on a video, and Rad Rat on YouTube had done one as well.
Yeah.
Those some boosts. They were fantastic. I don't know how many. Um,
Yeah, that's fine.
but yeah, and I think I do just as well digitally as physically. So I prefer having the book on my shelf so I can flip through it. But it's more expensive that way. So
Sure.
Our next question comes from Nevada in the Twitch chat. He asked you, given that the Plenty Tony Hawk forums are now defunct, what content do you think was the most significant loss, if anything, and do archives exist?
yeah, archives do exist. The problem was, I made my page, and then IGN converted it to THPS Online, and then we launched Planet Tony Hawk, and then we did a relaunch of Planet Tony Hawk, and then they archived it. So in the midst, certain things were lost, certain things were broken, and I don't even know for the site it exists, and lots of things work, but every once in a while, certain things don't. But I use archive.org for thing. Writing these books have been that site has been a godsend because I can take a peek at particularly for like promotional things and websites that were trying to promote things back in the day. It's great, and yeah, the site still exists in old archive form.
Yeah, that's great. That's the same thing. I use Archive a lot as well for various things. I wrote a history of the TXO clan and the websites. I captured it on Facebook. It's the only place I have that put up. But same thing. I use archive.org to get old screenshots and different
Yeah.
things. So yeah,
And it's great to have that history. It's great that somebody like you's taking the time to write that stuff up. Just I want this stuff to exist forever.
yeah, for sure. I'm so stoked that you captured that. It's cool that even though Planet Tony Hawk, even though some of the links and things are broken, the images are missing or whatever, there's still a lot of good content on there that you can access without even having to use archive.org. So at least there's that. It sucks though that you didn't get to have a good send off and all of the things that that's super frustrating for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for bringing that back up again. I'm not sure about it or anything.
Let's see. So the next question comes from Skate Ace, and he's just asking about your collection of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater memorabilia. He asked this last week, and I don't remember the pinpoint precise question, but I know it's along the lines of, what are some of the things about your collection? Do you have a pretty comprehensive collection? Have you kept a lot of the stuff? Do you have some really kind of crazy stuff that you could talk about in your collection?
So I'm an absolute collector. I'm an absolute collector, like a lot of you guys. And I got my hands on anything and everything I could.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I was super fortunate to be treated well by Activision. They always sent me stuff. So starting around Tony Hawk 4, well, a little bit 3 and 4, I started getting betas for everything beforehand because I was part of the media, with a strict, share and we'll kill you type, clause. And so I'll be honest, I have a stack of beta discs for PS1, PS2.
Wow.
I got all that stuff. And I've ripped them all. Kind of a big deal. I've got other memorabilia. I do have a couple, rare decks. I got a Tony Hawk's Underground one, American Waste one. Oh, I don't know. Some signed stuff from the early days from all the developers. They actually sent me a copy of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 with all the developers signed it, saying like thanks for writing the guides and stuff. That's probably the coolest thing I have.
Ooh, nice.
Just because it was a personal thing. But a lot of people, they collect and they can go get whatever they want, and their collections are probably more impressive than mine. But fortunately, I can say I have a lot of stupid rare, like stuff that you just can't get. Um,
Yeah.
I was lucky. I was lucky. I was pretty fortunate.
Yeah, we definitely have some collectors in our midst. We'll actually be having one of the guys that has one of the biggest collections, and I think you got in touch with him for some picks for your book, and that's Tyler. Tyler the Lasagna. You would probably know him as, and he would be very jealous of some of the stuff in your collection. I know he knows some of your stuff, and we got a couple other people. We got Dave Goes Deep. His comment in the chat says that he'd give you $1,000 for your Thug One deck right now. So he's a
Uh,
big deck collector.
I
So
got that right behind me in my office here. Part of my problem is that we moved. I moved from New York to Maine, from Maine to Sweden, from Sweden to Italy, and oh man, so stuff's are in boxes in some state right now. But I kept all my cool stuff. I got my decks here. There's no doubt. I had bought back in 2001. I bought 3 Tony Hawk decks to get signed when I met him, and he signed all 3. And then I don't know who. I think it was IGN was supposed to pay me back, but they never did. So I only gave away one of them. And I still have 2. I kept 2 for myself.
wow.
Um,
Awesome.
but yeah, I did talk to Tyler Lasagna. I do. I remember talking to him in some format. Probably when I was writing the book.
Yeah, he's great. Love having him. I got to go to when I went to the anniversary concert last year. He was my partner in crime. He came all the way from Maine out to California to see the event, and he's just a great guy. Really enjoy him. So shout out to Tyler.
And funny because I'm pretty sure when we were talking, I was I had lived in Maine. We weren't that far apart for a bunch of years, which I found really funny.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's so funny, Back then, I don't think we shared a whole lot of in real life stuff. That's a whole other conversation. But nowadays, it seems like people aren't as afraid to share where they live or wherever else. I mean, obviously, you're not going to give your physical address, but maybe the city that you live in. I don't think it's too
Yeah.
big of a deal. But
Yep. Yep.
Freddie, do you see any other questions in chat?
I do not.
Okay.
Looks like that's about it for the questions.
Well, listen, guys, I really appreciate you taking the time and opening up to me. I like to think I was kind of part of the important part of the community, but like I said in the last episode, I think it's just as important. Everybody who's still doing things and making it move forward. Everybody was involved back in the day, but the people who are still working on it and trying to keep it going, I think that's pretty special.
Yeah, for sure. I don't question if you were a significant part of the community. You were. I can say that without even hesitating for half a second. All the stuff on Planet Tony Hawk was super important to me, and I enjoyed a lot of the content. And it's an honor to be able to talk to you, and we really appreciate you taking the time to be a part of this. For Eddie, I'm sure you would echo some sentiments there.
Absolutely. I mean, just being a young kid growing up playing Tony Hawk, I would go on Planet Tony Hawk and look up the cheats and not even pay attention to who was running the site. I would just participate in the forums, grab info. So all these years later, it's really a great honor to have talked to you, Slateman.
Well, I'm humbled by it all, and there were plenty of other people involved, helping out behind the scenes, helping out up front. I know in later years there was a guy named Metal Dom.
Yeah.
I don't really know who he is or where he is. And there were a lot of people that helped out. So it's just special that you did something that people appreciated. That's all you care about. And the same thing with this dumb book. Just something that hopefully somebody appreciates. They read it like, wow, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. Uh, and, glad to have that heritage passed on.
Yeah. Well, Slateman, we can't thank you enough for being our guest today. We'd like to invite you to tell everyone what you've got going on today. Perhaps where people can buy your book, info about the upcoming Street Fighter book, anything else that you would like to share. Feel free. Don't feel like you're giving a shameless plug or anything else. Maybe give some information. Whatever you'd like to share at this point, floor is yours.
All right, well, that's awesome. So yeah, the book, is a 215 pages. I thought it was. I want to just pack everything in there, freaking hundreds of pictures, everything. Like every version of every game. Even the stuff that you think you would know, a bunch of crap you've never even heard of. Collector's editions and rare stuff. I wanted to write a book I thought I would like to read. And so Tony Hawk's Gaming Domination, it's available on Amazon around the world because it pretty much prints on demand. So, US, Canada, all through Europe and Japan. And also a digital version is PDF. It's I think it's about $10, which is a bit easier on the wallet. And that's at Selfie, SELLFY.com. Right now, finishing up a very similar book on the Street Fighter series. It's a series I've been a fan of forever. So I did the same thing, just every version of every game, which is a lot more daunting when it comes to Street Fighter than it's Tony Hawk. That should be out. Should be out next month. It's going to be through the same avenues, about the same price. It'll be 250 pages, which is just insane.
Wow.
And that'll be on Amazon and Selfie as well, and that'll be called Street Fighter Compendium. StreetFighterCompendium.com, and this is TonyHawk'sGamingDomination.com. And I'm glad I had the opportunity. I didn't have to work. Why not write some freaking books? This could be cool, and it's less about making money because neither of these are going to make me rich. I just think it's cool that for posterity that stuff's going to be there forever.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure to include links in the descriptions for the replays and the rebroadcasts to the books and how people can get in touch with that. And yeah, so we definitely appreciate your time. So, Slateman, we're going to move into the next part of our podcast. You're more than welcome to hang out and stay on voice. I know it's late there for you all the way in Italy. So if you feel like you want to cut off, feel free. We thank you again, but like I said, we're just gonna we just got a few more minutes that we're gonna cover some quick hits and things like that.
Well, thanks again, Dude Man. Thanks again, Freddie. I really appreciate it. I'm probably going to join my wife. It is after midnight here. But
Sure.
I wish you the best of luck with the rest of the season of podcasts. I think it's going to be pretty spectacular, man. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Later, guys.
Bye.
Okay, everybody. Thanks for listening along. Moving along, I wanted to reiterate the announcement for our next guest, which will be next Sunday, February 23rd at 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll be welcoming Satin to the podcast. For those of you that don't know, Satin is an amazing custom content creator, and he's very well known for creating some of the best custom levels Thug Pro has to offer.
We're excited. I can't wait to have Satin on the podcast. We're going to have some great questions for him. We're going to be taking a look at some of his levels. We'll have to get creative with that for the vocal part of that, but it should be really good.
Absolutely. Are you ready to hit some quick hits, Toad?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So, as I'm sure many of you are aware, Thug Pro released an update this week, version 0.6.0.13. This new update features the addition of the Beverly Hills level from American Wasteland, as well as tech toggles for boost plant and a few bug fixes.
Yeah, it's a great update. I've played it several times already. Get in there, check it out. Make sure and boot up Thug Pro if you haven't done it for a while, and take advantage of everything that it has to offer. We also have loads of new videos that have been released this week. So I'll just give a few of these so you guys can check them out. We have Lucky Shots from Jimmy, Power Lines from Jaho, Video Game Skating 2 by Way, Kiss the Goat by Grand, 30 Seconds in San Francisco by Maxfly, Come Clean Volume 2 by Oski, Heterochromatic Sunset by AK, Beverly Pills by Cody THPS, Nolans Spaghetti Bonk Stuff by CSRH, Noises They Feed in the Mix by Knit, High by Puke, I Shall Resign from Thug Pro Duties by Quirt. They just keep coming. It's just absolutely amazing what has been coming out. And if you need to figure out how to get in touch with these, but it's just crazy. This stuff's coming out still in 2020. We're still seeing all of this content come out.
Um, Now, for those of you that haven't been following along on social media, it was announced in the last week that Pretending I'm a Superman, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater documentary will be having its world premiere at the Mammoth Film Festival on February 29th. The screening will be followed by a Q&A featuring the cast and crew, including both Tony Hawk and Rodney Mullen. Mick West, one of the game's original producers, will be present as well. And now I'd like to announce that we will be welcoming the film's director, Ludwig Gurr, also known as Ice Bears Forever, to the podcast on Sunday, March 8th.
We're super stoked that Ice Bears is going to take the time to come hang out with us. So he's going to be just getting back to Sweden after his trip for the premiere at the Mammoth Film Festival, and so we're going to be really stoked to hear what he has to say. Where he's going to be talking about the event, we'll talk about his YouTube channel, and we'll be talking about the film, what the future holds for the film, and everything else. So that should be a great episode. We're looking forward to welcoming him.
Absolutely. I'm super excited to hear how it all goes down at the Mammoth Film Festival.
I wish I could make it down there. That'd be phenomenal to be a part of that. So, oh man. All right. Well, gosh, with that, we sure appreciate everybody stopping by for part two of this episode with Slateman. It's been awesome talking to him. He was one of the guys that we were just super, super excited that he agreed to be a part of this with us. And we're so happy that he has just all of his thoughts and everything that we got to hear from him today. And in closing thoughts, Freddie, while I look for somebody that we can raid here on Twitch.
Um, I I thought it was just a very insightful interview. Slate Man, he as you said, he was a huge guest, and just to chronicle the last 20 years of Tony Hawk with him was an awesome experience.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate it. We'll see you next week for our episode with Satin.